This week, we had some gaudy funding announcements, staffing drama, new models, huge AI shakeups, and more. And by huge, I do mean huge. I mean, we got another huge leak from Anthropic, not the one from last week, but a new one as its Claude Code source code has essentially been leaked and duplicated on the internet, which could mean some absolutely crazy things in the near future. OpenAI closed a $100+ billion fundraising round, yet at the same time, like half of its C-suite will look different this week than last week. Slack, yes, that's Slack, could be primed to challenge the likes of Microsoft in terms of collaborative AI capability soon. And the biggest story of the week in AI might have been one that you overlooked because it was a big story about a smaller model from Google. And y'all know I have been chirping about small language models and local AI since 2023. So I might actually go bonkers on this one because I think it's a really big deal. All right. If you can't spend like 10 hours a day following AI like I do, and you get lost and feel like you're getting left behind, don't worry. I waste all those hours and I tell you what matters and what doesn't on our Mondays show when we bring you the AI news that matters. So let's get straight into it. And what's going on? If you're new here, my name is Jordan Wilson. This is Everyday AI. This is your daily live stream podcast and free daily newsletter, helping everyday business leaders like you and me make sense of the nonstop AI craziness. And I help you grow your company and career using AI. So if that's what you're trying to do, it starts here, the unedited, unscripted live stream podcast. But make sure to go to our website, youreverydayai.com. Go sign up for the free daily newsletter. And we're going to be recapping all of these stories and everything else you need to know to be the smartest person in AI at your company. All right. Like I said, please don't spend like 5 hours a day trying to see what's happening in AI and how that's going to impact your company or your business. On Mondays, we do the AI news that matters. If you are new here, Mondays, we do this show. On Wednesdays, we go deep, usually doing a demo hands-on with one new tool, one new model. On Fridays, we have a new show called Feature Fridays, where we do kind of the smaller features that are going to make a big difference in your workflow. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays, we kind of rotate different shows. All right, enough of that. Let's get into our first big story, and that's, well, OpenAI, at least in the C-suite, is going to look a lot different this week than last week. That's because OpenAI is undergoing some significant leadership shakeups as several top executives have stepped back for health reasons, marking a pivotal moment for the company's direction and public messaging. So, Fiji Simo, OpenAI's head of AGI deployment, who was formerly their CEO of applications. She got a newer title, but she's taking at least several weeks of medical leave to address a relapse in a medical condition that she had going on, a chronic medical condition that she has publicly discussed. And Simo's departure triggers a broader reshuffling of responsibilities among OpenAI's tech executives. Top executives, impacting their product, business, and operations oversight. So the big one here is their chief operating officer, Brad Lightcap, is moving to a new role focused on special projects, including a potential $10 billion joint venture with private equity firms to distribute OpenAI technology, and would report directly to CEO Sam Altman. Then President Greg Brockman will temporarily lead the product organization, while Chief Strategy Officer Jason Kwan, Chief Financial Officer Sarah Fryer, and Chief Revenue Officer Denise Dresser will split oversight of business and operations. And then you also had Chief Marketing Officer Kate Roosh stepping down to focus on her cancer recovery. So yeah, essentially, I mean, that's not every single C-suite position at OpenAI, but that's literally like half of them are either have a new face in the role, or the role is just temporarily being shifted around. And this is pretty important because these changes are coming as OpenAI is increasing its focus on its core business with some high stakes deal making, which could impact how the company partners with other firms and also how they expand internationally. But the biggest thing, obviously, is, well, is this going to impact their IPO that is going to be coming this year? So we'll see. Investors may see this as some short-term uneasiness, but maybe some long-term stability. We've talked about in the last couple of weeks on the show as we've been recapping some of OpenAI's recent moves. And if you really care about it, we did do a dedicated show specifically on this. It was episode 742. It was called OpenAI's Most Chaotic Week Yet. Sora's dead. New models are coming and what it means for you. Pretty good listen, I would say, if you are a ChatGPT user, if your company's a ChatGPT user. I think it's actually an important episode to go listen to. So make sure you go listen to that 742. For me, right, I don't know too much, but if I'm one of OpenAI's biggest investors now, right, obviously it's a tight race with Anthropic, with Google. Some Google news, I think, is actually going to shake up the industry that we're going to talk about here in a couple of minutes. So at least having all these things happening at once, right? Obviously, two huge losses for OpenAI, dealing with some health issues with some of their top executives, but then also reshuffling a handful of other people, so I don't know. It seems like we might see some short-term uneasiness, but potentially maybe some longer-term stability once they get this sorted out. All right. Speaking of sorted out, Anthropic has finally sorted out their official stance on OpenClaw. And this one is extremely important for a couple of reasons. Well, one, if you missed this a couple of weeks ago, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, the CEO of technically the biggest and most important company in the world, said that OpenClaw was the most important piece of open source software ever. All right. And for the most part, the majority of people were using Anthropic to power OpenClaw, right? It kind of started almost as this unofficial, partnership with this open source piece of software. At the time, it was called Claude Bot, changed its name a couple of times anyways. But for the most part, when it started, it was recommended that you use Anthropic's models. And a lot of people, they kind of found a little shortcut, right? Wasn't really a shortcut, but, using their auth or logging in and using their Anthropic subscription, which at the time, right, was kind of a gray area. And then a couple of weeks ago, Anthropic came out with a statement that didn't exactly shoot it down because they didn't want to piss developers off, right? Because people love, especially using Opus 4.6 with OpenClaw, and they were using their Claude subscription versus using the API. Right. So a couple of weeks ago, Anthropic kind of came out with this wishy-washy statement saying like, oh, well, you shouldn't be using it. Well, they didn't even say it that directly. But over the weekend, big news. They literally said, no more. We're shutting it down. So Anthropic announced that over the weekend, subscribers to Claude Pro and Max plans will no longer be able to use their subscriptions to connect Claude AI models to third-party agentic tools, such as OpenClaw. And they did obviously mention OpenClaw by name. So Anthropic said that this change is due to heavy strain such usage puts on their compute and engineering resources, as well as the need to serve a broad user base more reliably. So the company did explain that its subscription plans were not designed to handle the high volume for tools like OpenClaw and these automated usage patterns seen with other third-party agent tools. Right. So, yeah, some people were using Anthropic's API, right? And you see people easily saying that they're going through hundreds or thousands of dollars in Anthropic API credits. But there was kind of a very well-known workaround that most people were using, just logging in with their Claude account. And then if they, have a $20 plan, well, that $20 plan is probably not going to get you much. If OpenClaw gets out of bed on a $20 Anthropic plan, you're already hit your rate limit. But I think people, on the $100 or $200 max plans, we're getting pretty decent usage out of this to power their OpenClaw setups, but not anymore. If anything, this is fantastic news for a couple of people. Number one, OpenAI. Obviously, OpenAI kind of hired the OpenClaw project. Not really, but they hired the lone developer, the lone full-time employee of OpenClaw. So, there's obviously that kind of correlation. And, the OpenAI team is obviously reminding everyone, yes, you can use your ChatGPT subscription inside of OpenClaw. So I think it's going to mean a lot of new business for OpenAI, but also a lot for Google. Yeah, we're going to talk about their new impressive Gemma 4 model, not technically customers because it's open source and you can run it locally, but also for the Chinese models that are super cheap, right? Via OpenRouter, something like that. They're going to see a boom as well. So it'll be interesting to see how usage changes on something like OpenRouter that tracks kind of all third parties, API usage, at least through OpenRouter. So in theory, you might say, okay, well, Anthropic's might go up. This might make them a ton of money. Or people might, right? I saw a lot of people testing this out. They're like, okay, I didn't do anything. I did this for one day, didn't use it a ton, right? Because it happened over the weekend. And they're like, I spent $60. This is not sustainable, right? Barely used it. I can't be spending $60 on this every single day, because with some of the, some of the Quen models, some of the ZAI models, right, that would cover more than a month of heavy usage with their best models because they're much cheaper. All right, so it should be interesting to see how this story continues to unfold, because I don't think it's done. All right, our next piece of AI news: Slack is getting into the fold. And could the company that was, once most known for just being a messaging company, are they going full AI workspace? Well, it looks like they are, and maybe they're trying to challenge at least a little sliver of Microsoft's business. So Slack has rolled out more than 30 new AI capabilities for its Slack bot, marking the biggest update since Salesforce really acquired the company back in 2021. So yeah, this is by far the biggest update to Slack that has ever happened. So the overhaul turns Slackbot from a basic assistant into a full-featured enterprise agent, able to take meeting notes across any video platform, run on users' desktop, execute tasks through third-party tools, and even function as a light CRM for small businesses. So yeah, if you've never used Slack or Slackbot, right, maybe your organization is Microsoft Teams, and you're like, okay, what the heck is this? So Slackbot was essentially an AI-powered assistant that Slack has had for a long time, right? But for the most part, it was just, to help you summarize long threads, help you get caught up, things like that. But now they're literally turning this into not just an agent that can kind of live across your entire Slack ecosystem, but it can do a lot of things that couldn't be done before, right? Such as the meeting summarization, now bringing some of these even Salesforce CRM, right? A lighter weight version of it into Slack, and having Slackbot be able to work with it. Also, Slackbot now has AI skills, which are reusable instructions, right? So if you know skills, well, you know skills, right? But they're reusable instruction sets that let teams automate and share common workflows. Then you also have a new deep research mode that allows Slackbot to conduct multi-step investigations that take several minutes, moving beyond the instant response model that is typical of most chatbots. Also, you have the Model Context Protocol, means that Slackbot can now interact with over 2,500 Slack marketplace apps and more than 6,000 Salesforce App Exchange tools. So, and plus it can create and edit Google Docs and slides. And then the other thing that I kind of mentioned earlier, but yes, that means Slackbot can now join any of your meetings, whether it's Zoom, Google Meet, or others, by accessing local audio, capturing discussions, summarizing decisions, and logging action items directly in Salesforce's CRM. So essentially, if you are not a Microsoft Copilot organization and you use Slack, which is a big chunk, or if you are even a Microsoft organization, but you also use Slack instead of Teams, and maybe you're not getting what you want out of Copilot, right? I think Copilot, FYI, I think I've said this at least once or twice. I was bearish on Copilot for like 2025, but 2026, I am bullish. They've had a great couple of weeks. I've been chatting with the team a little bit behind the scenes, so I know that they're cooking up some big updates here over the next few quarters. However, this is a pretty big play from Slack, right? Literally starting to venture outside of just messaging, right? Being able to, just the two things that I think are really worth noting. It Slackbot now being able to instantly, transcribe any of your meetings. That's huge, right? And then being able to log action items directly into a lighter weight version of Salesforce CRM, right? Because Salesforce obviously owns Slack. So, I mean, that's big as well. So once those features do get rolled out, they are on tiered rollouts, right? Some business users get this before kind of normal paid users, but this is a pretty big play here, right? I wouldn't want to be Zoom right now because Zoom, had an attempt to do this as well. Last year they had some pretty big announcements, right, going into a more kind of AI collaborative platform, and that's what we have happening here with Slack. But I think kind of the low key thing here that might actually make this super sticky is just the lightweight Salesforce CRM option and automatically transcribing your calls across multiple platforms straight into that. Because I've always said, right? I've always said for 5 years, I'm like, man, the thing that Slack is missing is some type of CRM, right? Because otherwise, like, right, I think because I used to work with startups a lot, and I'd be like, startups are trying to use Slack as a CRM before the features were there, right? And then you just spend so much time looking for things. But now that the combination of these new agentic AI capabilities within Slackbot, but also the call transcription and the CRM, this is, again, I'm not going to say watch out Microsoft, but they're at least coming for a slice of that pie. All right, now to Microsoft's actual big competitor, that's Google, and some big news because Google has launched Gemma 4. All right, so Gemma 4's release marks a major shift in AI accessibility and capability with Google's new open weight models now available under the more permissive Apache 2.0 license. All right, so here's what you need to know. So Google has released Gemma 4, a updated family of AI models spanning 4 different sizes, from a 2 billion parameter edge model that you can literally run on like a Raspberry Pi, and obviously even like older smartphones, all the way up to a 31 billion parameter dense model, which that model currently ranks third on the Arena AI open model leaderboard. So the Apache 2.0 license is a major change, removing previous restrictions and allowing broader commercial and enterprise use. So all 4 Gemma 4 models are built on the same research as Gemini 3, Google's proprietary frontier model, and are designed for both on-device and workstation class deployments. So the lineup includes the effective 2B or the E2B, and then the effective 4B or the E4B. Those are the edge models for phones and compact hardware. Then you have the 26B mixture of experts. So that's something that you can run on basically any newer laptop, right? Because it's a mixture of experts. So it doesn't take, or it doesn't require quite as much RAM. And then you have the 31B dense models, and that's more optimized for offline use on developer hardware and consumer GPUs. So yeah, the 31B model, that is the one that right now is third. All right. Yes. All right. If you don't know the math here, let me break the math down for you. All right. So I'm going to actually go ahead and bring up Google's blog post, because I don't know if I'm going to have time to do a show on this. I really want to, but let me just give you the quick rundown of why I think this is actually super important. All right, so I'm just going to bring up for our live stream audience here. This is just a screenshot from Google's announcement blog post, and here's why this matters. All right, and I'm going to try to simplify this. So if you don't know a lot about edge models or offline open source, don't worry, right? So proprietary models, that's what most people use, right? You go to chatgpt.com, you go to claude.ai, whatever, your Microsoft Copilot, it uses a cloud model, right? And so you pay for the inference, you pay the cloud, right? Because you're running this, and these are huge models, right? The ChatGPT, the Claude, the Gemini, etc. But then you do have kind of offline models that you can download. Those are open source models. But for the most part, anything that's decent is like obnoxiously large, right? So I have a little chart here from Google that just shows the kind of model performance versus size. So essentially, the Gemma 4 31B thinking. So you will have to have like a Mac Studio, right? Like I have a Mac Studio. I'm going to be running Gemma 4. You can run the Gemma 4 26B. That's a mixture of experts, so you're not getting the full power. But even that one, if you have a newer MacBook, right, you should be able to run that one fairly fine. But this is about one. I got to zoom out here to make sure I'm doing my math here. Yeah, I'm doing my math correctly. It scores higher on the arena than models that are about 20 times its size. All right. So essentially, now, especially if you care about open source, and I do think open source is important, even though, right, frontier models with all their protection are safe to use if you're on a paid plan, you don't have to worry about. But there's obviously some huge benefits to having local models. But you are essentially getting a model that is about the same power. I had to look this up, even though I knew this in my head. If you go back 1 year, right, the best models were GPT 4.0. It was, I believe, Gemini 2.5, and it was Claude Sonnet 3.7. All right, a year ago, this Gemma 4 is better than all of those on both the scientific benchmarks and on the arena scores. And arena scores are user preference, right? So it's all a blind taste test. So y'all, literally, you can go download a model right now, run it on your machine, no internet, nothing. And it's not going to be blazing fast like you would expect, right? But if on my Mac Studio, I did pay a little bit more for it, but it'll run fairly quickly. This thing is better than what we had a year ago, than what you were paying for. And now it's free. You can download it on a local machine. So pretty cool. A couple other details here. So the larger models, all right. So yeah, they do outperform competitors up to 20 times their size on benchmark tests. And the cool thing, all Gemma 4 models are multimodal. So they're able to process video, images, and text natively, while the Edge versions also support native audio input for speech recognition too. Yeah, we'll share in our newsletter. There's actually, Google has a dedicated app that you can download that lets you run these locally on your phone as well. So yeah, if you're, I don't know, somewhere where there's literally zero self-service, you can still chat with a, obviously the Edge versions aren't frontier level, but, they're probably at least like 2 years old frontier level, if that makes sense. So the Edge models feature a 128K token context window and are up to 4 times faster than previous Gemma versions, and they use up to 60% less battery. Also, according to Google, the Gemma models have been downloaded more than 400 million times, and already there's more than 100,000 community created variants since their initial release. And I think that number is going to go bonkers, because y'all, I cannot emphasize enough, this is huge. This is huge. And this, if I'm being honest, Google just woke up and chose violence, right? Right before the Easter holiday here in the US. They're like, yeah, we're going to put out a model. We're going to open source it. Not only that, but changing the permissions to Apache, because before it was a little more restrictive and you couldn't do as many things, right? I would assume that we're going to see within a few weeks, we're going to see tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands already variants of Gemma 4. I do think this is probably going to be the most talked about open model ever. And this, if nothing else, this puts a ton of pressure on the frontier labs, because if I'm being honest, Google doesn't necessarily need to win with Gemini, right? Because they could put out something like this with Gemma 4. And now all of a sudden, this might, as an example, right, this might take away a 10% of the pie from all the other big labs that are getting paid, right? So, Google doesn't even need to necessarily worry about making more money with Gemini. Obviously, they will. The product continues to improve, but they can literally just create models that are good enough for so many customers, right? So, in theory, Google might be losing money every time they put out a model like this that is a step change for open source, but it might not matter because, right, if it's that good, it's only going to make their Gemini ecosystem stronger because you're going to get more and more people using it. It is based, on the same research as Gemini 3. So for companies that have maybe been on the fence about AI, or if they need a local kind of open source model in their stack and they get it and it works, right, then they're more likely going to be using Google's other products. All right, two more quick stories. I told you I might go a little long on that one. All right, so next, OpenAI has closed a record-breaking funding round as they officially closed its $122 billion round with a post-money valuation of $852 billion. So the company's latest round was co-led by SoftBank, with also major contributions from Andreessen Horowitz, DE Shaw Ventures, and participation from Microsoft, Amazon, and NVIDIA. So the fundraising surge comes as OpenAI's ChatGPT now boasts officially over 900 million weekly active users, including more than 50 million paid subscribers. Also in a release, so OpenAI said that they're now generating more than $2 billion in revenue every month after reporting $13 billion in revenue for 2025. But the company is still not yet profitable and continues to burn a lot of cash. So yeah, last reports we saw said that OpenAI did not expect to be profitable until about 2030. So the latest capital raise included $3 billion from individual investors and for the first time allowed participation through bank channels, widening access beyond major firms. So Amazon committed up to $50 billion, NVIDIA invested $30 billion, and SoftBank added another $30 billion, with additional funds coming from a broader pool of investors. So Microsoft, already a key partner with over $13 billion previously invested, also joined the round, though its latest commitment was not specified in the announcement. So we've talked about this a little bit on the show, but this was essentially the end, right? This was the end of the round. We had already heard that it was going to be above 100 billion, but now it is done. It is closed. 122 billion, record breaking, right? And this means that OpenAI is likely to IPO, or very likely to IPO, beyond the 852 billion, right? Because that's their post-money valuation right now. I've said that it's very likely that they're going to IPO past $1 trillion unless something majorly wrong happens in the next couple of weeks, which you never know with all the AI or OpenAI drama. It's very possible, but presumably with all the momentum that OpenAI has, I don't see that changing, right? And also, if you are listening to this show every day, you have to realize we live in an AI bubble, right? Because you might say, oh no, like Anthropic's winning 2026. And I agree, Anthropic is winning 2026. But still, outside of our little AI bubble, no one's heard of Anthropic, right? Let me be very honest. Right? People know Google Gemini because now Google is advertising literally everywhere. And AI, people just think, oh, ChatGPT, right? So for the most part, outside of, your general, people involved in tech, people who follow AI, right? For the most part, people just know OpenAI. They just know ChatGPT. Oh, that's AI, right? So pretty big news here as OpenAI prepares for its IPO. All right. And our last big news story of the week. Yeah, Anthropic, another leak. This one, maybe not as good, right? We covered their last leak last week. Try that one 5 times fast. Last leak last week, right? That's where we found out about their new Mythos model and a couple other agentic capabilities, but this one not as good. And I'm going to give you like a random hot take after we get through the actual news. So a major leak of Anthropic's Claude Code has exposed the full architecture, unreleased features, and internal performance data of the AI coding tool. So the leak handed competitors a very detailed roadmap of unreleased features and deep technical insights, potentially reshaping the competitive landscape. So according to reports, here's how it happened. Well, there was a debugging file that was accidentally bundled into a routine update and pushed to the public registry, leading to the exposure. So the leaked file pointed to Anthropic's own cloud storage, whoops, and contained nearly 2,000 files and 500,000 lines of source code, a lot of that being for Claude Code. So within hours, the code base was mirrored and analyzed across GitHub, quickly gaining thousands of stars as developers dissected the material. So Anthropic confirmed that no sensitive customer data or credentials were exposed, attributing the incident to a packaging error rather than a security breach. So the source code included dozens of feature flags for capabilities not yet released, such as session review for improvement, persistent assistant mode, and remote control from phones or browsers. The leak provides a clear picture of Anthropic's plan for longer autonomous tasks, deeper memory, and multi-agent collaboration, features central to enterprise strategy as it prepares also to go public like OpenAI. Here's the interesting part. Outside developers have already reverse engineered parts of Claude Code, which prompted takedown requests from Anthropic. Many of those were originally granted, and then a lot of them were reversed. And here's the kind of spicy or interesting thing, y'all. And I'm just going to go ahead and share a random, since I'm already sharing my screen in another tab here, I'm going to go ahead and share a random tweet that I just posted. As if I don't spend enough time talking about AI. So here's what I said, because I think maybe instead of just me riffing it, I'll just read what I wrote. So I said, okay, this is crazy, but hear me out. Anthropic has publicly claimed that Claude pretty much writes 100% of its own code. The Supreme Court the courts ruled last month that AI-generated work cannot be copyrighted. Claude Code got leaked. Someone ported it to Python, called it Claude Code, got 100,000 GitHub stars. And then clones like this were framed as clean room rewrites or new derivative works. So by admitting that Claude Code writes nearly 100% of its code, I'm asking here, did Anthropic just kind of shoot itself in the foot? Because I wonder what will happen when or if Wall Street figures out what this means before their IPO. And well, what this means, well, the Chinese Claude Code clones are going to go crazy this month. All right, so long story short. Many senior people from Anthropic have said that Claude writes 100% of their code, right? And it's been multiple people at Anthropic have said this. So why does this matter? Well, if you accidentally leak all of your code, or if it gets leaked, right, and people take it and they rewrite it using AI, right, that could be considered derivative. Yet, if Anthropic says that they've, 100% of the code was written with AI, and the Supreme Court said that if something is 100% written with AI, if it's not protected by copyright, essentially Claude Code, right? This is a unicorn in and of itself. This is one product, but probably Anthropic's most popular product. Now, in theory, I mean, we'll see. It's going to be a lot of work for Anthropic's legal team, which we know Anthropic's legal team is always sending out a lot of letters. We'll just say that, right? But this is going to be interesting because China, we know, does not usually pay too much attention to copyright. And there is literally versions of this in the wild of the actual code of Claude Code, right? So combine that, right? Because it's really good. Claude Code is a great program. Myself, I like Codex a little bit more, but Claude Code is great. I use it every day, right? So now that's essentially out there. All of Anthropic's hard work is out there, and anyone may be able to just use it because someone has ported it, a couple of people ported it to other programming languages. So between that is out there now and the fact that the Chinese open source models are getting really, really good, and the proprietary closed models are just, maybe 3 months behind, Oh, it's not great timing for Anthropic for this to happen right before their IPO. We'll see if Wall Street figures this out, right? They're not digging in the details as much as some of us AI nerds, but regardless, not great news for Anthropic. All right, that's all for the big stories, but let's quickly go over what's new and what's next. This is just kind of the bullet point overview of still some very important stories that didn't make our top list for the week. Some of these are rumors, some of these are leaks. Let's get into them. First, ChatGPT launched in CarPlay, an updated version for both your, so if you update your iOS and your ChatGPT app, you should be able to access that if you do have CarPlay in your car. I can't wait to try that out. I don't know why I didn't this weekend. All right. Perplexity Computer can now run workflows inside of Slack. All right. Oh, I know why I didn't try that out yet. It's because I don't like the new iOS. I don't know. There's all these backgrounds in your text messages now. Anyone else out there? Just me? I'm an old man shaking my fist on the porch. All right, next, Google AI Studio launched Focus Mode, enabling point and click UI app edits. I'm loving that one. Claude released Microsoft 365 connectors, enabling Outlook, OneDrive, and SharePoint access. OpenAI just rolled out pay-as-you-go Codex seats for Teams, so you only pay for what you use. Anthropic acquired Coefficient Bio for $400 million, expanding life science AI with Genetech talent. Notebook LM's quizzes now show topic summaries. This is pretty cool. Also, study suggestions and a regenerate tool for focused practice. So yeah, you don't even have to like reprompt anymore. It just does it for you. Microsoft is testing Copilot advisors, which lets multiple AI personas debate topics and then it's summarized afterward. The lead for Google's AI coding agent, Jules, joined OpenAI's Codex team. Perplexity's deep research can now generate structured outputs like presentations, spreadsheets, and websites. Perplexity Computer released a feature to help users with their tax returns. Anthropic is testing Conway, an always-on Claude agent with extensions, webhooks, and browser integration. I can't wait for that one. I don't like the how Claude Code uses or Cowork uses the browser. The new Qwen 3.6 Plus preview reached number 8 on Code Arena. A new image model was briefly tested on Arena, and most were suspecting it's OpenAI's new GPT Image 2. So even though OpenAI killed Sora, it looks like they may be continuing to invest on the image side. AI hiring startup Mercer reportedly suffered a data breach via its Light LLM that may have exposed up to 4 terabytes of sensitive data from experts and clients like OpenAI, Anthropic, and Meta. Speaking of Meta, they launched a new Ray-Ban and Oakley AI glasses with prescriptions, nutrition tracking, and WhatsApp summaries. A new Quinnipiac poll finds that 55% of Americans believe AI will do more harm than good, citing job and education concerns. I agree with that one completely. SpaceX confidentially filed their IPO paperwork, reportedly targeting a June public listing. So I'm guessing that we'll see more traction on OpenAI and Anthropic around Q3 or 4. Google Workspace added Gemini to rewrite docs in users' writing style. Anyone else notice this just pop up? I'm loving that one. Gmail launched AI Inbox, but only for AI Ultra subscribers and beta in the US. So, all right. Can't wait for that to just go to all paid users. Perplexity is now facing a lawsuit over alleged data sharing in private mode. Not good. ZAI launched GLM 5V Turbo, a native multimodal vision to code model, and OpenAI acquired TBPN, the team behind the Silicon Valley Tech Talk Show. All right. It's a lot of news this week. And if you missed any of it, don't worry. Spend your Mondays with us. Stop worrying every single week. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? How am I going to learn AI? What should my company be using? That's literally why I exist. This is all for free. I try to give you the unbiased, maybe with a little bit of opinion, a little bit of bad humor every single day, Monday through Friday. So if this was helpful, please go to youreverydayai.com. Sign up for the free daily newsletter. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to see you back tomorrow and every day for more Everyday AI.